This is Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO, WNYC, and WHYY. I'm Nancy Solomon. We've got an exciting Senate race to look forward to in the new year in New Jersey, and the governor has been taking a little heat over it. We'll talk about that this evening, and we'll take your calls. This is your chance to speak directly with the governor. Call us at 844-745-8255. That's 844-745-TALK. And we'll be reading your questions via social media using the hashtag AskGovMurphy. And the number again, 844-745-TALK. And we're joined by Governor Phil Murphy. Good evening.
Good evening, Nancy. Good to be with you as always.
So it's almost 2024, and on January 1st, the minimum wage goes up to $15 an hour in New Jersey. The federal minimum wage hasn't gone up since 2009. It's only $7.25 an hour.
Yeah.
And now with a raise to 15, New Jersey's in a small handful of states at 15 or higher. There's California, New York, Washington, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Maryland. This was one of your top priorities when you first were elected, and it's been phasing in every year since you got it passed. So 2024 seemed like a long way off back when this bill passed, but here we are. So you must be happy about that.
I am, although a couple of things. It took us a lot longer than it should have to get this done, and I frankly still don't get why that was the case. You did have a lot of myths out there that, oh my gosh, if you raise minimum wage to $15, you're going to put a lot of mom and pop small businesses out of business. Well, the exact opposite has happened. We've had 60,000 new small businesses open over the past couple of years. We're at an all-time high. It shows that these are not separate. One feeds into the other. If you pay me more money, I've got more money to, consume, to go out to dinner, maybe put toward a kid's education, etc. I think the debate upon reflection, given what people get paid these days, is almost quaint, frankly. And I wonder whether or not we shouldn't be taking this higher. That's something that I'd be very open to. Haven't spoken to the legislative leadership about it, but I'm open-minded to taking this to another level at some point.
How high are we talking?
I don't know. I would be open-minded to that as well. The federal rate is an embarrassment when you think about the gap now between the states you listed, including, I'm proud to say, New Jersey, and the federal rate. It's shocking. So I'm open-minded. I'd say we should consider a meaningful, again, phasing it in. I don't want to do anything overnight, sticker shock. That would impact particularly mom and pop businesses. I don't want to do that and never have. But something where we could have a glide path up to something, maybe toward 18 or 20 at some point, I'd be open-minded to that.
Huh. Well, that would put us, I can't remember from that list, one or two of the states are at 16, maybe New York and California. I shouldn't say because I don't remember, but so you get up over 16 and then you get to say New Jersey has the highest minimum wage in the country.
That would be a badge of honor. Again, I haven't spoken with the legislative leaders on it, and obviously can't do anything without the legislature, and they've been fantastic, by the way. But that's something I think we should be open to. Someone asked a rhetorical question lately. I've started to ask it myself. Quick, find a job right now in Jersey with the supply-demand imbalance that pays $15 an hour. And it's a fair point. Most jobs, I can't say that there aren't jobs at that level, but most jobs are now paying more than that.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, we've seen pretty bad inflation over the last couple of years.
Yep.
Is there any reason to suspect that higher wages in New Jersey are fueling any of that?
No, I don't think so at that level. I think wages, higher minimum wage, I think maybe my answer would be no on higher minimum wage. I do think there is both the classic demand pull impact, increasing inflation, and also wage push. But that's not because of where minimum wage is. This is because the job market, you remember the summer of 20, summer of 21 on the shore, how many conversations did we have back in the day where you couldn't, for love nor money, if you were a restaurant or a bar or an amusement park, you couldn't find anybody to come in and work. Even summer kids were charging, $20, $25, $30 an hour. I do think that has contributed to it, but not the minimum wage.
Right. Okay, we're going to go right to the phones. We have Hattie in Dayton, New Jersey.
Hello, Hattie.
Hey, Governor Murphy, how you doing tonight?
Very well. How are you, sir?
All right, good. Yeah, so my question is that, well, to give a little context, I was born and raised in Jersey in Middlesex County, and, I'm a Muslim, and I know you did a lot of good work for the state. I voted for you for 2 years, again, and I know you went around different mosques, especially in the Middlesex County, and those communities have endorsed your campaign. But since this most recent conflict with Israel and Palestine, a lot of Muslim community members and even non-Muslim community members feel disappointed and frustrated with President Biden's and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken's rhetoric towards Palestinians, and feel like it's a dehumanization towards the Palestinians. So my question for you is, what's your message to the Muslim community during these times, and why should they feel compelled to vote for Democrats come 2024?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm glad you raised it, and I have been deeply engaged with both the Jewish community in New Jersey and the Palestinian community, and we have one of the largest in both of those communities of any American state. And Hattie, this may take more than 30 seconds, but I want to tell you what I believe to be the case. But some of this you're going to say, you know what, I'm with you. Some of it you may not. So I want to be clear about where I stand here. Hamas is a terrorist organization. They do not represent. Secondly, they do not represent the interests of the Palestinian, the innocent, reasonable Palestinian community that I am deeply aware of. What Hamas did on October 7 is barbaric by any measure, and Israel has a right to defend itself unambiguously. We can never put genocide into context. We can never dehumanize rape and sexual violence. Having said that, Israel must do everything in its power in that response to spare as many civilian innocent lives as possible. And I think you've seen the United States, including President Biden and Secretary Blinken, particularly of late, imploring both publicly and privately for Israel to do just that. So within its right to defend itself, please, God, do everything you can to save innocent lives. And I believe with all my heart, and I'm a former diplomat myself, and I continue to believe with all my heart, please, God, we have the ultimate comprehensive two-state solution, which is supported by the responsible neighborhood in the Middle East, which means equality and security for folks on all sides of this. And I pray for that, and I pray for peace. But I have to say, when you didn't ask this, Hattie, but when these college presidents are asked about genocide, it depends. It doesn't depend ever on anything. And let's be unequivocal about that. But those are a string of things, Hattie, that I believe in. I continue to communicate actively, as I say, with both with families, Israeli families that have a New Jersey nexus, including one in particular that I'm in constant contact with, whose son is a hostage, and on the other hand, with Palestinian New Jersey residents who have family members who have either been killed, trying to escape, have escaped, and we are engaged deeply on both sides, on all sides, I should say.
Okay, Hattie, thanks so much for your call. And
not easy stuff.
No, it is not. Let's stay with the phones because we do have a call coming in, I believe, about wages. And since we were talking about that, let's go to, I'm afraid I don't have the name of the person on the line about wages. Uh-oh, folks.
Hello?
Okay, well,
Hi.
let's go with a
Hi.
question from me then. And when we're ready with the call, we'll go. So another money issue for New Jersey, you want to get rid of the corporation business tax surcharge. That is a tax that is on companies making more than $1 million in profit each year. And that represents only 2% of all corporations in New Jersey. It generates $1 billion in revenue annually. You've said the state can afford to get rid of the tax because revenue is up. But the revenue forecast for the state is now appears to be trending down. And not to mention, there are plenty of funding gaps. Most notably, New Jersey Transit is facing a real huge deficit. So are you starting to feel any more flexible about keeping that tax, given that maybe the economic fortunes of the state are changing?
Yeah, I'm not. But we didn't take it off because revenues were fine. We took it off because a deal's a deal. We went from number 4 highest corporate tax rate in the country to number 1. And now when you take the surcharge off, we'll go back down to number 4. Still not cheap. And business attraction, job growth, corporate taxes as a general matter is one of the big ways to where we want to get to in terms of the latitude we need to fund the programs that we hold so dear. Revenues, there was an article that sort of felt like it was apocryphal that they knew something that I didn't know. Revenues are within, a very, at this point, at least small margin of where we projected them to be. So do I think we'll have softness in the near term? I do, but that's part of the reason why I signed a budget that had $8.2 billion of a surplus, knowing that we'd have a structural imbalance for a period of time and probably eat into that to some degree. I'm a huge bull in the medium and long term, but we kind of, with interest rates at this level, with the Fed doing what they're doing, inflation, et cetera, we kind of expected things to soften. And as I say, relative to plan, it's only been a little so far, but my gut tells me that it'll trend somewhat south from there. But I do think a deal is a deal. And on the other side of that deal, those corporations have said, listen, we'll hang in here. And if you're true to your word, we'll invest more in Jersey, we'll grow jobs, et cetera. So it's going to be incumbent upon them to do just that when this comes off. And that's what we expect.
Now, some folks are floating the idea that if you kept the tax, you could pour some of that money into NJ Transit. And I believe, Kenny, don't you, Ken Burns is here with us, WHYY,
New Jersey reporter.
New Jersey reporter. Sorry, I forgot to introduce you, but
No worries.
You're monitoring social. And I know that there was a question that we saw about New Jersey Transit. So let's put all this together.
Yeah, in fact, we received a couple of questions, so I'm going to pick one to represent the two folks.
Okay.
Prashant in South Orange, why is NJ Transit so bad and unreliable? She prefaces her question by pointing out constant delays as well as extremely old equipment and poor customer service. She had to deal with a particular train during the morning rush hour, not stopping at her station for some reason. There are always track changes, and worst of all, she does not feel that this is ever going to change. Hope you could do something about it.
We got Jen Shortino with us here. Jen, make sure that we get Kevin Corbett to call Prashant. Pardon me, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, and to combine with the question I wanted to pose to you, which is that there are reports that there will be a $957 million budget shortfall for New Jersey Transit predicted by mid-2026. So combining current problems and future money problems, why not dedicate that money from the corporate business tax to fix the transit problem?
Yeah, so several things. First of all, I'm deflated to hear Prashant's experience because the overall experience is dramatically better than it was 6 years ago. This state was a wreck, and the wreck within the wreck was NJ Transit. I think you could say definitively more on the rail than the bus side. And so whether it's safety, on time, customer satisfaction, better and newer equipment, which will take time, admittedly. This is light years different than it was. Now, that does not mean that it's perfect, and I'm concerned that her experience sounds pretty miserable. So I'm going to get the CEO of NJ Transit to understand exactly what went on. But the general experience right now is dramatically in the right direction. We're still subject to the fact that my predecessor canceled the 2 extra rail tunnels under the Hudson, which was a huge strategic mistake. That means we have a lot fewer one-seat rides into Manhattan than we should have. And I'm happy to say that we will have, because the Gateway project is off and running. And that's one example. We're still beholden to Amtrak issues. Unfortunately, we all share the same rail beds. So even if we bat 1,000, as they say in baseball, we're still going to have a context around us that isn't great. Separate question is the finances, and that number is plus or minus about right. We're running the numbers, and we're looking at all different options. I don't have an answer for you tonight, but it's convenient to say, well, we decided to become the #1 corporate business tax state in America, which really at the time I was worried would imperil our ability to keep big companies or attract new ones. And thank God we've not only been able to sustain what we had, but we've grown. And you look at Bell Labs announcing on Monday that they've made the decision. They looked all over the United States for 6 years, and they made the decision they're going to stay in New Jersey. They're moving in New Jersey, but staying, and in fact growing. A deal's a deal. I mean, we need to be, again, a state that people trust, that views as fiscally and responsible more generally, and doing what you say you're going to do is part of that.
Well,
come at it again.
Did you think, I mean, do you think it was a mistake to raise that tax to begin with? I mean, you were for it and now you're against it. So why is that?
Well, I was for it because I said it was temporary. We never said it was permanent. So I think the world of you, but that's actually not true. We were for it and said it's going to be with us for a period of time. Again, we forget the wreck that we inherited. We had no choice. So I mentioned I signed a budget with an $8.2 billion surplus. I think the surplus the year before we got here was 400 and something million. So that's not quite 20 times, but this place is a dramatically different place. Now, again, it's soft right now, and we're going to have to be very serious about the next budget, because unlike Washington, which outspends its means every year, meaning it spends more money than it generates in revenues, we could do that for a while. We can't do it constitutionally or otherwise for year after year, and so that's something we're going to have to all lock arms on. But I think it's a mistake to go back on your word.
And are you committed to creating a stable source of funding that is dedicated to New Jersey Transit?
At least to some extent. I think you have to look at all angles here. We haven't raised fares in 6 years because, again, we felt like we didn't have the moral or other authority to ask commuters to pay more money when the system was a wreck. We've gotten the system into much better shape now, withstanding Prashant's experience, I have to say, which we have to track down and figure out. So we're looking at everything right now. No news to make tonight, but it's a gap that we feel that we take seriously. But by the way, I won't be governor in mid-2026, but I don't want to leave the next person, man, woman, Democrat, Republican, holding the bag as we were left. And so we are committed to that.
Okay. I'm going to try to squeeze in a call. We have Hank in Ridgewood. I'm sorry, Hank, but you're going to have to be really quick with your point that you want to make or your question. And we'll come back to you after the break. Hank, are you there?
Hey, Hank.
I'm here.
Okay.
Hi.
What do you got for us?
I represent 600 adjunct instructors at Rip Urban Community College. And in reference to the $15 minimum wage, in January 1st, everyone in the school, all the adjuncts are going to be making less than minimum wage. We've had an 18-month contract dispute, and we've had 2.5 years without a raise.
Okay, Hank, I'm going
And
to
we have
ask you to
students.
hold on to your line, and we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk with you about this in just a moment, okay? So we will take a break. I'm Nancy Solomon. You're listening to Ask Governor Murphy, and we'll be back with Hank's question and an answer from the governor in just a minute.
You're listening to Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO, WNYC, and WHYY. Got a question for New Jersey's governor? Call us now at 844-745-8255. That's 844-745-TALK. Pose your question on Twitter or Facebook with the hashtag AskGovMurphy.
I'm Nancy Solomon, and we're live with Governor Phil Murphy. And I'm hoping, Hank, that you are still on the line, and we're going to let you be able to finish your question. Are you there?
Oh, yeah. I'm here.
Hey, Hank.
Absolutely. Hi, Governor Murphy. So where was I?
Yeah, you were saying
would you like
you
to
haven't had a
that lecture?
contract in 18 months, and you guys are making less than minimum
Haven't had a
wage, which is
contract in
deplorable.
18 months, actually close.
Yep.
Yeah, it's 18 months. We have gone 2.5 years without a raise. And in that time, by January 1st, the entire adjunct staff will have fallen below minimum wage on an hourly basis.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And isn't there also a possible strike happening at NJIT that's coming up?
I've not heard that, but that is possible. Listen, the adjunct, I'd say two things, Hank, three things, actually. I'm going to ask Jen if you get Emmy Quispe to follow up with Hank tomorrow. We'll try to get to you, Hank. We try to get to everybody within 24 hours. I'd like to get more color on your situation there. Secondly, adjunct faculty is a constant reality of being, for lack of a better word, being treated as second-class citizens in the context of wages and benefits.
Third.
And right, so it's just not just in the Bergen Community College system, but that's just it's a constant theme. We saw that in the Rutgers negotiations this summer and elsewhere. And then thirdly, I would just say, what you just said should not be the case in America's, I would argue, quintessential labor state. I'm supporting in a big way 32BJ, which took a strike vote today. These are custodians, janitors who, listen, I get it that retail's soft, that office space is soft, but fellas, let's not balance the books on the back of your custodians and workers. And they've been at it for months trying to negotiate. They think they're not being negotiated with in good faith. And we're pounding the table on 32BJ's behalf. And, we have to be true to our word. If we say we're the America's quintessential labor state, each situation is different, I have to say. So there's some commonality across all of these negotiations. And I get that. There's also uniqueness. But, let's get to a better place. So Hank, we will follow up with you. Long-winded way of saying we want to learn more about this.
Okay, we're going to stay with the phone calls because we have Gabriel in Summit on the line.
Hey, Gabriel.
Gabriel, are you there?
Hi there. I'm here.
Hey.
All right. Hi there. Thanks for taking my call. So my question is related to NJ Transit and congestion pricing. I believe very strongly in congestion pricing, but all of what I've heard so far is that the profits from congestion pricing are going to the subway, and New Jersey commuters are going to pay for that for the most part. So the question is, how do we get the tolls from congestion pricing reinvested in NJ Transit, and what are we doing about that?
I love the question. And by the way, that would be one of the items on the table. We're pursuing this legally right now, so I probably can't say a whole lot about that. But, you know, if this plan's going to go through in some form, we want some of the, to Gabriel's point, we want some of the scratch that we could then use to fill up that gap that you're talking about earlier. Listen, I literally mean this. I don't think there's a state with a better environmental record in the past 6 years than New Jersey. I literally believe that. I used to think California, but I actually don't believe that anymore. So and that's not like, and that's Gabriel not promising you that. That's actually been executed. So I say that to give myself some bona fides here. We're not against mitigating pollution. In fact, we're all in for that. But here's what this will do, particularly in the absence of the 2 extra rail tunnels, in where there was a cancellation of that project before I got here. Then the Port Authority bus terminal replacement, foot dragging on that forever and always. We're finally getting that moving. If both of those realities were true, if it was a fair deal, including some of it coming back to Jersey, if the George Washington Bridge was not excluded, then you know what? I think you could get into a room and try to figure something out. But right now, there are 2 realities that are unacceptable. One is Jersey commuters are getting their eyes ripped out. 2, Jersey's not getting any of the money back, to your point, Gabriel. And 3, because of the uniqueness of how the George Washington Bridge is being treated, the pollution isn't being reduced, it's being displaced. It's being literally moved from Manhattan to northern Jersey. And that's which is why we're actually suing right now, although I'd be shocked if we don't end up taking direct action at the Metropolitan Transit Authority, but no news on that tonight. But that's why we're suing the federal government, because we felt they should have done a complete, what they call environmental impact study. Everybody at the table look at the whole regional impact, and then we would have said, you know what, we'll accept the results even if we don't like them. And that was not done.
So we're talking about congestion pricing. We never really introduced the idea for people who aren't following along.
Fair
so
point.
This is a $15 per car fee if you drive below 60th Street and in Manhattan. New Jersey drivers or any drivers coming across the Hudson River would get a $5 discount from that $15. But, you know, to follow up on what Gabriel said and asked, I mean, isn't it true that it's not all, I mean, that there are more New York drivers who will be paying the congestion tax than New Jersey drivers? It's not just New Jersey drivers, and along the same lines, New Jersey commuters who ride the train into Manhattan also take the MTA around the city. So they benefit from better funding for the MTA. So how would you answer those things?
I guess, but the MTA is not my responsibility. Listen, I have said this, you've seen Mayor Adams, with whom we have a great working relationship. Let me ask a dumb question. You're the mayor of New York. You're trying to get New York City back on its feet, including the central business district in Manhattan, post-COVID. You're giving people another reason not to come in. And I don't know for the life of me why folks would support that. Again, I've got I think the credibility to say we believe we need a better environment and we need to fight climate change and pollution and all that. But this is just not in my humble opinion, the right way to do it. They did make a couple of concessions. In fairness, folks should also know that there's a separate board approved a plan, and I guess the MTA has preliminarily approved it, so it's out for public comment. And I would strongly suggest folks in New York or New Jersey to weigh in on and comment on that. They did make some concessions. Buses were exempted, which I think is a good thing. And they reduced the overnight numbers. We wanted them to go to 0. They went down, I think, by 75%. But it's not, in my humble opinion, and I'm joined by many, particularly in North Jersey, it's not where it needs to be.
Okay, well, let's leave that there. And so we're a few weeks away from the new year, and 2024 is shaping up to be one of the more interesting election years we've had in New Jersey for some time. The presidential primaries are fast approaching, and there's mounting concerns about whether President Joe Biden is too old. And that's coming from Democrats, not just Republicans. So do you think that that's a fair criticism for Democrats to be raising at this point?
I mean, what's the phrase that Andre Agassi used to be? Perception is reality, something like that. So
you lost me on that one.
I mean, I think you listen. We know the president very well. We've seen him in action forever and always. Is he 81? Yes, he's 81, and somebody that age is 81, obviously. But I see no diminishment, and I'm not sure that's a word, in acuity. His physical shape is quite good. This guy's on top of the world. In fact, I've said to him and his people, own it. Remind people Warren Buffett's 15 years older than you are. Joke about it. I mean, but if you ignore poll after poll after poll, I think you do so at your peril. So I'd love to see them fight back more aggressively on that.
What about if February, March comes along and polls are showing that he would lose to Donald Trump? Should he step down at that point?
I really believe with all my heart that a couple of things are going to go in his favor. And I know the polls of late are not terrific. And as I say, I would fight hard. I'd be aggressive about his age, and I would put this on Trump's lap because the stuff he's been saying of late is literally heinous, and I worry for our country. I think the economy is, I said, soften in the near term. I think it'll begin to strengthen in the spring. I really believe that. I think when it becomes clear if, in fact, Donald Trump will be his opponent and not just one of a handful of people, but it's him, people are going to say at long last, oh, my God, this is the Nikki Haley card didn't get played or the Chris Christie card didn't get played. It's actually going to be Donald Trump. I continue to think abortion and reproductive freedom has legs. And I was interviewed with a bunch of other fellow governors. I would be very sharp and aggressive on that. For understandable reasons. He's a Roman Catholic and adherent, and I give him nothing but credit for that. He has a hard time saying the word abortion. But the fact of the matter is, look at what happened in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Folks aren't following that. This woman was denied an abortion where it's almost certain the fetus would have died, and I believe she was also at risk of her own life.
Mm-hmm.
And the attorney
and her future fertility.
And her future fertility. So that would have been it in terms of her ability to be a mom again. And the attorney general in that state is awful, and the Supreme Court's awful. And what did she have to do? She had to flee the state. So God bless her. Keep her in your prayers. I would just say it's another example. Folks may not want to hear this, even if you're in a beautiful town like Austin, and I love that town. It matters in what state you live and work these days, unlike ever before in America. And if you're a young woman or even a girl who's going to be a young woman and eventually be in childbearing age, or you've got daughters, or however your calculus is, you got to really think twice. Sadly, as an American, I say with great sadness, what state you ought to be living in. And say New Jersey is a state where freedom and rights are on your side, and we've got your back. So in any event, that's I got off the track here, but you know where I was headed.
President Biden to abortion to Texas.
Correct.
I'm following.
Yes.
So moving on to the Senate race in New Jersey, the race to challenge Bob Menendez.
Is there a race?
Yeah. And this is our first show since First Lady Tammy Murphy announced that she'll run for the seat. We did discuss it last time, but she hadn't announced. And boy, the reaction has been swift and passionate on both sides. The Democratic Party chairmen that represent the counties with the largest number of Democratic votes in the state all came out in support of Tammy in a matter of days. But there's also been a large backlash from many progressive organizations in the state who are calling her candidacy nepotism. Are you surprised that there's been that kind of blowback? I mean, from your own party that that you're facing some of this criticism?
I would just say, first of all, I think the world of her. I've said this before. If she were a baseball, she would be. I hope Doug Doyle's listening. She would be the Shohei Ohtani. She's a 5-tool athlete. I really believe that. She does it all.
She's your wife.
She is my wife.
So
correct.
you're supposed to think highly of her.
Yeah, but I've seen her in action, and I think the fact that she is my wife is actually it's the opposite of nepotism, is what I'm seeing. And the people who are not supporting her, I think they're holding it against her that she's my wife. And I bet you if she were my husband, it would be a different story.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, I think people are making an argument about nepotism. That's why they're not supporting her candidacy.
Listen, that's their call. But listen, this is her third statewide campaign. She was the finance chair in my first run. She was the chair and finance chair in the second run. She's now running herself. Do you remember the name recognition poll that came out earlier this year about possible gubernatorial candidates? Of which Tammy, not my poll, and she has no interest and never has in being the governor. The highest elected official, I think, was Jack Ciattarelli at 51 or 53. Tammy was at 73. Okay, so it's not like she's not out there. She's worked full-time volunteer. She's got a serious portfolio, and if you saw it from the inside, the press may be, and God love the press may appear to make this look a little bit more on the one hand. On the other hand, in terms of her support, she has overwhelming support, and she's earned it, and she'll continue to earn it. She will go to every corner and meet every person in this state. She loves that, number one, but she knows she has to earn it, and she will earn it.
Well, and you have said this before, that she's going to go out and earn these votes. But the endorsement of the party organizations can't be discounted. I mean, and I guess I need to explain because it's hard for people to understand.
Are you going to bring this up
am.
on this show? This is the first time I've ever heard this from you.
We talk about it a lot. I happen to think it's an important issue for democracy in New Jersey. Everywhere else in the country, they lay out their ballots so that for each office, they list everyone running for that office. And the ballot tells you how many you can vote for that office. New Jersey, and only in New Jersey, 19 of 21 counties in the state lay out the primary ballots with what's called the county line. Each county party organization, and many times this means the bosses with no participation from the rank and file, endorse candidates for each office, and those candidates running for different offices are listed in one line. So you could have the presidential candidate at the top, the Senate candidate next, the congressional candidate that people are familiar with in their district, on down to their local races. So this system is opposed by the League of Women Voters, the Good Government Coalition of New Jersey, the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, and dozens of other organizations. You've said Tammy is a good candidate who's going to run on her own merits. Why not call on the county organizations to put all the candidates together in one line and let the voters decide that?
Okay, so let me. I'm shocked you brought this up, Nancy. I think you brought the lineup in every program we've ever done.
Sometimes we get calls about it.
I want to say that every program we've ever done. May I also remind you, by the way, there are two other groups that have coalesced very quickly around Tammy. One is largely African American faith leaders, of which they're coming out now, measured in dozens. And another group, by the way, that is not beholden to any other, and that is, we have 9 members of the Democratic House delegation in Washington, 6 of whom have come out and endorsed Tammy, one of whom she's running against, one of whom his father is the U.S. Senator. That leaves one person who has said she likes both Tammy and her opponent. So with all due respect, there are a lot of people coming out here. Secondly, the line. I will address the line.
I'll grant you on the first example, the pastors and ministers who have come out in support of her, but the congressional representatives, they get elected by running on the line too. So
I just don't.
That doesn't really count.
I tell you, I don't agree with you 1,000%. I just want to say that emphatically. I don't agree with you on that one.
Okay.
The line.
Yeah, the line.
Okay. First of all, bosses. I hate that word. That's just not that's not the reality. These folks who are chairs have had decades of experience. And why you would ignore that experience is beyond me, number one. Number two, as we've said, and I've used Middlesex County, Kenny, as the example, just because the chair says, I like candidate A, you have to go through a very serious process with 1,000 people in the room.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
We're coming back in just a moment, but we've got to take a quick break. This is Ask Governor Murphy. I'm Nancy Solomon.
You're listening to Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO, WNYC, and WHYY. Got a question for New Jersey's governor? Call us now at 844-745-8255. That's 844-745-TALK. Or pose your question on Twitter or Facebook with the hashtag AskGovMurphy.
I'm Nancy Solomon. We're live with Governor Phil Murphy, and we are talking and debating the county line, the form of ballot design that only New Jersey has in the entire country. And I believe we have a caller about this. We're going to take that call. We have Brian from New Providence on the line. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Hi, Nancy, and hi, Governor Murphy. It's kind of a repetition of the questions you just asked, but I'll ask anyway.
No
So
problem.
I'm sure you, Governor Murphy, you've seen studies that show there is a 38% advantage for candidates that are on the county line. And there are a number of organizations around the state that are calling for a fair ballot in the 2024 election. And the fact that so many county chairs and party bosses, I know you don't like that term, endorsed Tammy Murphy within days of her candidacy announcement, would you support a change in the ballot for next year's primary election? And if not, why not?
Yeah, I'll tell you why not, Brian, because I think the system, am I open-minded? Yes. I should have said this up front, which I always do. We're in the middle of a suit that I have to also, not we, Murphy family, but the state is in the middle of it. So I have to be careful. I'm always open-minded to better, and we've done a ton of election reforms in our time in office, and I'm incredibly proud of that. And by the way, there's more on the table that I love. I love this notion Brian Stack has put forward to let 16 and 17-year-olds vote in boards of education. I think that's a huge step in getting more youth involved. There's another one which I had hoped would be the case when my daughter was 17, turning 18. If you're 17 at the primary, but 18 by the general, you get to vote in the primary. Those are two other steps in addition to the many we've taken. But we have a fundamental disagreement on whether or not the system is working or not. I was mentioning before the break, Brian, that these party chairs are there for a reason. They've seen it all, and you have to weigh that. I believe positively. I mentioned Middlesex is always my favorite example, but many, if not most, counties do it the same way. Where you get 1,000 people there, you got to sing for your supper, one candidate after the other. It's not fun, I might add. Thirdly, why did this come into existence to begin with? And the way back history on this is that, Ken and I are working 2 or 3 jobs. We don't have time. We're not really in the game, but Nancy's in the game. I mean, she's following candidates. She's studying. She's looking at, and so the election goes out. Can you elect somebody who would represent your interests fairly? It's a very legitimate basis as opposed to this notion of a smoke-filled back room. And I would also conclude with this, if I may. This
You
is
may.
this has nothing to do with the Senate. This has to do more with me. I would ask rhetorically, if you're a progressive out there, for the past 6 years, look at the results. Compare them against the results of any other state in America. I don't mean elections. I mean the actual work of government. And I would argue with all due respect that you got exactly what you were dreaming of, particularly following Chris Christie. So I would just say there's a little bit, for me, the proof is in the pudding. And we're probably America's most progressive state right now.
But what about the state legislature? I mean, I think, tell me if you disagree. The state legislature is more conservative in New Jersey than the Democrats in the state legislature are more conservative than Democrats generally in the state. And a lot of them have been there a long time. There's no getting them out of there. And the line is a big part of that. There's no turnover, because when you have the line and you're the incumbent, you do not lose.
Don't be mad at me. I'm not sure.
Mad at you.
I'm not sure I agree with you that they're more conservative, and the turnover is enormous. That's the part you're going to get mad at me. Legislative District 3, entirely new. Legislative District 4, 2 out of the 3 new. 8, 1 new. Retirement of Governor Cody, retirement of Senator Cunningham, new Senators Berzicelli, McCurgy, McKnight, McKeon. There's actually a significant amount of turnover. And your point about is it more conservative or not? I think that in fairness, you could debate that. I actually haven't thought about it in that respect. But you've got some among the most progressive in our caucus, among the most progressive Democrats, I'll bet, in any state legislature in America, and proudly so. Okay,
well, we are going to have to move on, but I know Kenny Burns from WHYY, you're looking at social media. I know you had a question on the county line. Have we pretty much cooked that goose, or you want to ask it?
Is that a seasonal reference you're making?
Happy holidays, everybody. Well, let's squeeze these in, because we've got at least a couple of them, so let's just knock them out of the way. Elizabeth in West Orange wants to know, don't you think it would be better for Tammy Murphy, democracy and voter confidence, if you let her run on a fair ballot so that no one can say she only won because of you? Deb Whiting on the other end of the state in Haddonfield asked, if your wife is such a qualified candidate for Senate, why not let the voters decide for themselves by endorsing an office block ballot in New Jersey?
Yeah, I just say more of this. I don't want to make folks have to slog through by saying the same thing. You play with the system you're dealt. She's a very confident candidate. She's a very confident person. She's incredibly qualified. This is the system, she's going to run in it. And that is the reality. That is the system. That's what she's going to run in. And I think she's going to win.
Okay, we've had our monthly discussion about the county line. I'm going to check that box. And
I will miss this in February of 2026.
But let's stay with the New Jersey legislature, because you've been trying to reform New Jersey's liquor license laws.
Yeah.
There's a prohibition era restriction that allows only one license per 3,000 people in each town. You proposed to change to the system last year that would open up more licenses, which I think many people believe would help revitalize downtowns. And because of the restrictive supply, liquor licenses are super valuable. They can sell for upwards of $1 million. And that means the holders of those licenses are lobbying hard to keep the system the way it is. We talked a few months ago about the craft brewery bill that you didn't sign because you wanted the legislature to take up the whole issue in the lame duck. Have you given up on getting liquor license reform this year? I mean, we've got, a few weeks left in the lame duck session.
Absolutely not. And listen, some of the articles would imply that this isn't going to happen. And I think they're equivalent of, the score is 10-7 late in the third quarter and implying that's the final score. So we're still at it. We've had great conversations with legislative leadership. In particular, the Senate president had some, I think, very legitimate concerns that we're working with him and his team on. I think we'll get there in, Nance, I would use the word incrementally. I don't think we're going to get everything on day one. The craft breweries, the wineries, the distilleries deserve to be unburdened from the kind of, I'd say, silly restrictions that they're under. They are unburdened for the time being because through executive order, and that'll stay open, I believe, until we do have a resolution on the broader reality. But there are the so-called many hundreds of pocket licenses. There are mall licenses. I think there's a legitimate question as to how the Alcohol and Beverage Commission actually reapportions those licenses that I know the Senate president has felt, and I have a lot of respect for that. So long-winded way of saying we're not there. We're probably not going to get there on one stroke, but I'm still confident we'll get there, and get there probably in stages.
So what does that mean exactly? That you'll accept the craft brewery bill with a few minor changes, and you'll wait until the new legislature to tackle wider liquor license reform?
Not necessarily. Too early to tell. I don't want to get too specific because I'm not sure exactly how it looks at the end of the day. But I want to make sure if the breweries are out there, they know that we're going to be there for them, and I think we'll be able to do a significant amount more than that. And we haven't talked as much as we should lately, and I think you used the phrase prohibition era. This is the prohibition era regulations are holding back main streets, and you also mentioned, which is a legitimate issue, the folks who already have the licenses. We have to respect them. Yeah. There has to be some process here that's fair. We're prepared to engage in all of that. But when you look at places that have actually reformed the liquor licenses, and we're behind the 8 ball on this, we're usually ahead of the curve. We're behind in this one. It's transformed main streets, and that's what that's what we will see in New Jersey. That's what I want to see sooner than later.
Okay. We're going to go back to the phones. We have Sue in Sussex County on the line.
Hello, Sue.
Sue, are you with us?
Good evening, Nancy. Good evening, yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You sure can.
Hello?
Yeah, we got you.
Hello?
We hear you.
Yep, we're here.
Uh-oh.
Hello? Can you hear
Sue,
me?
We can. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. I'm calling from Sussex County, Cranberry Lake, which is sits on the state parks.
Yep.
And we have a truly Jersey civil engineering icon in the Cranberry Lake footbridge.
Yep.
Which is 350 feet long, wood, steel, concrete. It's been closed since 2019, 5 years. I can see my doctor's office from across the lake, but I have to get in the car and drive now.
Hey.
And there's no plan. So I'm wondering what can be done. It's part of DEP, but I think it's a complex repair that perhaps New Jersey DOT ought to be involved.
Okay.
And this may be naive from a grandmom's standpoint, but I've watched the budget for infrastructure funding in New Jersey, and there is money for footbridge repair and rural bridge repair. And if we can send $100 million down to the coastal boardwalk, why can't we get our boardwalk fixed?
It's a damn good question.
Any idea, Sue, what it would cost to fix the footbridge?
We've had, we're a nonprofit group of teachers, nurses, firemen. We've had several varying costs from 400 to $1 million.
400,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what she said. Okay, so what are you going to do, Governor? Maybe you should just write a check.
Do you have any spare change? I mean, Sue, that's an awful. I mean, I could have Diane Scacchetti, who's our commissioner of the Department of Transportation, or Sean LaTourette, our DEP commissioner, call you. I think, Jen, what makes the most sense as a first pass, I'm going to ask our colleague Rob Field to reach out even tonight or tomorrow morning to Sue to make a first pass, because it sounds like it could fall in a couple of different places. But it's I don't have a good answer for you. I'd be lying to you if I said otherwise. It sounds like you used the word iconic. let's get it fixed.
Yeah, and I happen to know that Sue's been waiting a long time to ask this question
Oh, I didn't know
because
that.
she has not gotten through on the lines for a few months. She emailed me. She
Okay.
emailed the WNYC, and it got to me, and so we worked hard to make sure she got through on the lines.
So Jen, make sure Rob gets to her tonight or first thing, and make sure he posts me directly, because
Okay,
Cranberry Lake, by the way, is like a
it's
gem.
beautiful.
It's beautiful, and to have something like this not open is ridiculous. So
Yeah.
we got to figure it out.
Okay, Sue, thanks so much for your call. And we're going to squeeze in one more before we go tonight. We have Evelyn in West Orange.
Hey, Evelyn.
Hi, Governor Murphy. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
This is a question about saving our environment. Is there anything you can do to keep homeowners associations from not allowing homeowners to use solar paneling?
Oh, wow, that's really interesting.
It's a good question, and I'm not frankly sure you can, but I'm going to ask Dennis Zebeloff, Jen, on our team to follow up with Evelyn. And is that not using them because of the cosmetic? It's a bad look, or what?
Yes.
What basis would you be opposed to
Purely
it?
cosmetic.
Okay.
Purely cosmetic. They want every house to look the same.
So I would bet it's a local jurisdictional issue. I bet you there's not much the state can do. If I had to bet a buck right now, I've never been asked this question before, as if I have to say that.
Yeah.
But I bet you it's a local planning board issue. But it's a hell of a question.
I remember years ago, like literally 15 years ago, I did a story about a lawsuit that involved homeowner associations and what they could demand of their homeowners and not.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting one. We're going to have to look into that and figure out what the law is. It makes me want to do a story about it right now.
We will. One of Dennis's attributes, he's the head of our policy team. He's also a Yale law grad, so he's got a good sense of also how to find his way around the legal side. It's possible the association has powers. That may be state driven more than local. But
presumably you would like to see more solar panels on houses.
Yeah.
Because I have a question about your clean energy goals that you want to reach. 100% zero emissions by 2035. That means producing electricity through renewables and not through fossil fuels. My understanding is that this is a policy or an executive order of yours, and that environmentalists want to, in this current lame duck session of the legislature, want to get a bill passed and make it law.
Led by Senator Bob Smith.
Right. So is that going to become a reality before the new year?
I don't know, actually. I know there's been a huge debate around it. Bob's a great senator and a great leader on environmental matters. I can't speak for him or the legislature. It's a heck of an effort. I'll give you, I don't know where we are in time. Are we okay?
We've got a minute.
You got about a minute. So we're doing an enormous amount on generative artificial intelligence of late. We're going to have a huge announcement next week. We had Bell Labs this week, which was not all AI, but somewhat. But energy turns out to be a big question in this. If you're in this space, these data centers are huge consumers of energy. So we're trying to figure out a way. We're a natural for this industry, but we got to be very aggressive on the energy requirements. Obviously, in our case, we want to be alternative.
And how does this relate to AI?
But these data centers, you need massive amounts of data.
So it's a negative thing. I thought it was a positive thing.
Well, the AI, the jury's out. We think if it's done right, it's going to be a game. It's going to be it'll be dwarf what the internet was when it first came in. But they require a lot of energy. So the question is, can you have on the roof solar? Can you draw in from solar fields? So it's a fascinating question that goes hand in glove with this.
Okay.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. You've been listening to Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO, WHYY, and WNYC. Thanks for listening.